Welcome to Neurodisruptors. I'm really excited to be chatting with Dal Mack. He's the former dancer and choreographer and judge extraordinaire. He has worked with everyone from Beyonce to Lady Gaga to Timberland, Drew Barrymore, and RuPaul. And he has built an extraordinary career around the world, working with brands and events like the Olympics and Vogue Italia and Hello Kitty. I don't think there's anything you can't do, Dal. Like, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really excited to chat.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. It's so like I said, I've been really excited about this because you have done so much, you have accomplished so much. It's absolutely incredible. So can't wait to hear all about it. So if we go like right into it, and talk about your youth, was there something about dancing or that type of field that really appealed to you? Because I know you had started in something completely different.
Yeah, so when I was younger, as I was actually really into like art and like drawing and whatnot, painting. Well, not painting as such, but more graphics. But my parents, being Asian parents, so, like didn't think it was a thing to go down, like a route to go down. So then I studied maths and sciences and ended up doing an engineering degree. But I think what I was connected to movement when I was younger was I used to grow up watching martial arts films like kung fu movies. My dad's from Hong Kong, so I really got influenced with that, and did martial arts since I was 10 years old, doing two types of martial arts, Aikido and karate. But I didn't start dancing until I was at university when I was like 20, 21. I just tagged along with my friend to a breakdance class. So I overheard them at the student bar saying, "Oh, I go breakdancing." I was like, "Oh, that sounds really cool." And then yeah, I just tagged along to Pineapple Studios in Covent Garden and started breakdancing and got hooked. And but before that, the only thing that I could connect to was probably music videos, watching music videos, and like Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson. I used to copy Michael Jackson a lot and learn the moonwalk, the gliding. So yeah, so that was my younger connection to movement and dance, I guess. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, so first of all, I just need to know, do you have a favorite martial arts film?
Oh, that's a tough one
Or
because
a, all right, so how about one
I
of
would
your
say
top?
like the
Mhm.
ones that I was most influenced by their Wu Ping is a fight choreographer, and he directed a lot of and fight directed a lot of movies, including what we the Western world known as the Matrix and
Mhm.
whatnot. But back in the day, he was like from the 70s onwards. He was like my favorite films were basically fight directed by him unknowingly until I got to know why they were so good and the camera angles and the fight choreographies. Yeah, yeah. So that those are the films if anyone wants to look out for are the ones that I really love.
Nice. I love martial arts films. They're fantastic. So, but this is interesting because, you and I had chatted before about the relationship between dancing and engineering. And obviously from the neurodivergent perspective, I'm really interested. Is this like a pattern thing for you, or what was that relationship?
Yeah, I think like even when I started breakdancing or breaking, I would learn the movement and my teacher would be like, "Wow, you did the movement and you finished the combo, but you're not really connecting to the music. There's something else going on." And I was like, "Oh." So that's dancing, right? Music and moves, and because I struggle to find the rhythm, and how I figured it out was by counting, like using my maths, your time signatures, and then count. We traditionally count to eight, but you got like half beats of one and two, quarter rhythms, one E and a two, and then that's how I started to figure out rhythms by like, okay, that's the count there, and so processing dance was the first thing I did, and then obviously visuals, looking at visuals, formations, transitions when you're dancing in a formation, and then obviously music, and then videos, working on sets with film, like camera
Mhm.
angles, cameras, frame speeds, visual effects, post production. Yeah, lighting. There's so much that involves science and maths that I really connect to, and then that unknowingly for a lot of people, that is creating the visual that we're seeing, and that's what making it look good and feel good.
I'm so curious. Is that something that once you see that connection, you can't unsee it, whether you're involved in something or whether you're just.
It is hard, especially watching performances or watching movies. And it's the thing, another thing, like watching fight choreography, like the cut to another angle for an impact and all that kind of stuff. Like if I can watch something and not notice things, that's probably a good thing because I'm immersed in it and I'm not analyzing it and I'm not trying to dissect it. So yeah, it's pretty hard for me to watch things these days without having a critical eye because obviously like I'm used to doing this stuff. So yeah, yeah, it's a tricky proposition.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like I can imagine. So I know as a writer, like I'm always focused on the script when I see something. So I like completely can relate. So what I'm curious about is you getting into dance because it is so fascinating to leave engineering and then go into this completely different way. So did ADHD give you a kind of need for excitement and physical stimulation and newness? And do you think that that was part of that transition, or was it literally just more that it was fun?
Yeah, I mean, definitely starting out, it was like doing something for fun. But I
Mhm.
think I think looking back, like I was very active as a child, and I pretty much did every sport and tried every sport, from like playing football, rugby, cricket at school. But then I was into athletics. I was into the Olympics. I was into like snooker and darts. I used to play snooker with my brother every weekend at a local club, and then we had a dartboard at home, and I was just next to the TV throwing darts for ages one time, I was just hitting 180s. And so I think like I was always stimulated by physical challenges and I guess that this is a way to like let's say satisfy that. And then yeah, so when I started dancing also like I obviously started with breaking and I I could have stuck with it and got really good at it. A lot of the guys that I did start with, they all ended up being like national level or international level. But I had a thirst to try other things, so I started trying other dance styles, and then it escalated, from break dance to Latin and ballroom to locking street dance, popping, and then I was like, oh, now I need to try techniques. So I did jazz, ballet, and contemporary dance, and all sorts, swing dance, and started parkour later in the life, and then so there's this. I felt like at the time I just wanted to like see how far I could go with all these different styles. And obviously I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't I was doing it on the whim. I was actually I enjoyed the variety and just stimulating my brain and seeing how I can mix these things up. And eventually, obviously, choreographing now, I can access these different movement styles and obviously work with different artists from their backgrounds and know their language and know their vocabulary, so I can direct them.
Okay, let's see. That this goes on to two follow-up questions because I get
Yeah.
very excited. When you mentioned body popping, I'm terrible at it. Like, can I see a body pop? Do you mind?
Yeah, yeah. So body pop is a body pop basically is actually a muscle contraction. So we all have muscles that we can tense and release really quickly. And obviously when we're then you see people hitting shapes, they are doing it on the beat, and usually it's a snare, the kick in the snare. So it's like a boom, ka, ta. And then there's other styles under umbrella popping, which are actually styles themselves, like waving. That's
Yeah, that's the one
waving's a
I was
thing.
thinking.
Tutting, throwing shapes, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so like there's loads of umbrella, yeah, they're all under the umbrella funk styles actually. So locking is also funk style, which is a funky style. You know, you could classify whacking as a funk style because it happened in that era, which is with all the arms you see, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and yeah, and then the birth child of breakdance was after funk styles, but James Brown music was the influence to the breaks of the songs of that era started break beats, which equals the people dancing to it called breakers and break. Yeah, so there's a lot of history behind stuff, which also I geek out on as well.
Amazing. I love this. So like out of all because this is one of my favorite things about you is that you have such a range of movement genres. Like you just mentioned, ballet, jazz, parkour, Latin American, modern, street, everything. Is there one that feels best in your body, if you know what I mean?
Um, I feel like I think like in my heart, obviously, because I started with breaking breakdance, that's the one I gravitate more towards. But obviously, when you're getting older, it's a lot harder to do. So your body, because it's a very, very physical. But when I watch, breaking and breakdance, I always get that, that there's something it lights inside me, and I'm always like, oh, that's so cool, Or if I hear a break beat, I'm always like, oh, it's my body starts going. So I think that is, let's say, if there was one style I gravitate towards, it's that. But I love it all because everything's slightly different. Everyone has a different technique or different groove, a different challenge. So they all have their like. I go through phases sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to do a bit of house. I want to do a bit of locking. I want to do, you know. So yeah, like I like it all, but I think breaking would be the one that I would gravitate towards if it was one. Yeah.
So, okay, so this is another thing I'm dying to know. Do you ever, when you go onto a dance floor with people who maybe don't know what you do you ever surprise everybody with your moves and stuff, or
Uh,
are you like a pretty subdued dancer at the club?
uh, I think the hardest thing for people that do know dance or know dance technique is to go out and dance normal. Like it's it's because even a two step just doesn't feel right in our bodies. Like oh, it's very basic. Um, but it depends on the vibe. So a lot of times if I'm going out with my non-dancer friends, it's almost like they demand something. It's like an on-demand, like, you can you do something or do that move, and you're like, actually, I'm not working today, so so in a way, like, but obviously, if I go somewhere and the music's good and there's a good vibe, it will naturally happen. Everyone's dancing, everyone's doing something cool, going for it. Then yeah, I would basically I would I would naturally just get down anyway. But if it's forced upon me, it's a little bit different. It's a bit harder because then it's like, I'm not quite in the mode or the mood for it yet, and so yeah, it's an interesting one going out and dancing. Yeah, with non-dancers, we sometimes I just want to relax and just do normal dancing, which is very hard for me.
So like okay, so we're gonna like talk about like some of the big performances you did.
Mhm.
So obviously you performed with artists like Beyonce and Gwen Stefani and Lady Gaga and Jessie J, and you performed at the London 2012 Olympics and the MTV Europe Awards, Top of the Pops, X Factor, the whole thing. So what the first? I mean, there are so many questions that we could talk about with that, but the first thing that came to mind actually is when you're in a big, overwhelming situation like that with a lot going on, and do you go into like hyper focus mode, or are you still kind of taking a lot from what's going on around you? And do you
Yeah, I
sometimes get
think
excited that you struggle with that, or is it just pretty easy to?
Yeah, I think once I'm in those environments, I think it's easier for me to. I think first thing is that I focus on the task at hand, which is what I need to do, whether with the artist or my performance or the performers. Obviously, I'm also a very curious person, so if I walk into a space and everything's like all the performance has been designed and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, the lights are there and it's doing that, and then she's going to enter through there, and then they're going to do something amazing that ends up over here. So I obviously like I get inspired by everything that's coming around because I'm like, wow, how are they doing this? How it's almost like a deconstructing a puzzle. But I am very much focused on like I need to be here. This is my visual reference for where I need to be, but for my formation and my transition, and then I need to go over there. Yeah, so I do very much focus on the task at hand I need to do, and when I go on, yeah, when I go on set or in the production space, I'm pretty. Weirdly I find it very very easy to be in that environment. Like it's almost like clockwork. When I walk into onto a set or a production stage or whatever, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing. This has to go there. That it's yeah, it's easy for me to focus. Yeah.
That's amazing. Like that, I would find extraordinary. So, like, did you? I'd love to know two things more about this, the big shows. First, did you have a favorite person who you worked with, or like one of your favorite people, and what made it so cool?
Yeah, that's a hard one. There's so many people worked with. But I think what connects me when working with like any of these people is that, ultimately they are human beings, and they are, if you talk to them like, as normal person, they have feelings, they have, interests and hobbies, activities. Yeah, you can connect to them quite easily, and that is one of the obviously if you're working with someone and you haven't really met them, and you have to like go straight in and do a rehearsal and choreograph or whatever. The challenge is obviously, one is breaking down that barrier of like that first meet. Is almost like a first date. But like yeah, it's treating them as normal person rather than go, oh my god, oh my god, oh my
Yeah.
god. So but like in general, it's really hard like to pick one. But what I did respect was one time, the time I was performing with Gwen Stefani at the MTV Europe Awards, was she we never interacted with her, before the performance or during rehearsals, only to perform. And then, but afterwards, she was really nice. She explained why she wasn't around to like hang out with us. She really did want to hang out with us, but she was saving her voice for the performance. And then afterwards, she offered up, like, there was like, I don't know, over 20 of us. She was like, if you all want to get a photo each, we can do it right now. And she's very generous like that. And was, you know and that's the key, like treating dancers and respecting them is really a huge thing, because often we're the bottom of the food chain in terms of even being treated as well as everyone else. I mean, sometimes I've been on like films and where they've treated support artists better than dancers and all that kind of stuff. So I think it really opens my eyes, and makes me feel warm when an artist does respect everything that's happening throughout the whole production behind them. It's creating that whole picture that makes them look good, rather than them being just a star. And ultimately, yeah, like if they understand they're just normal people too, then everyone kind of respects and values everyone.
Right. Well, yeah, that I love that. That makes sense. I think it's really hard to do when your adrenaline is like pumping and stuff, but I love that you've got that tempered thing of, okay, we're all here to do a job, and if you treat people like they're human,
Yeah,
then things happen like a lot better. So
totally.
so
Yeah.
I'm so curious, because another one of my favorite things about you is your range in terms of the types of things that you choreograph. So you've done live shows, musicals, adverts, immersive exhibits. That's a lot. And I think people outside of the industry might not realize or understand that one of those genres, like, is enough of a thing to go after and whatever else. So I love that. Does this come from like a sense of kind of ADHD curiosity or like newness, or is this that you really wanted to master different kinds to give you more options?
I think it's a bit of both, but also I think it's because I didn't study dance at a college, or I didn't have any formal training in dance, that when I started in the industry, I didn't really know what it was, and I had to like find out what it was and break it down, and then to go,
Mm,
oh, there's a job there. Oh, and there's one here as well. And then, so it was more like trying to see where the jobs were and how to like see where the opportunities to get in there was. It has been hard because obviously there's certain people that would specialize in one, let's say, sector of the
mhm.
industry. Like for instance, a musical theatre person would, go into musicals, perform in musicals, then end up assisting someone, and then just doing musicals, for their career choreographing. Whereas I
Yeah.
floated around a lot. So I started in music videos and commercials, mainly screen industries, moved into TV and film. But then, but when I started dancing, I was more of a stage dancer. Like, I did a lot of award show, live shows. I was in a dance troupe. Um, so then, yeah, they gravitated towards doing a bit more stage things, and then musicals. And that was a hard in, because when you're not in the musical world, to get into musical theatre, it's like chicken and egg. You haven't gotten in, because you never worked with a director or a choreographer in the theatre world, but you want to do musicals. It's such a barrier. But I was really
Mhm.
lucky that I was given an opportunity because of my show reel, and that a director gave a chance on me, and then that's how I do one, and then your network grows through just the one planting that one seed. So yeah, and then I've always been interested in execution of movement and dance in all genres, because like there's so many ways to consume dance now, like through virtual, through live, through screens, through immersive. There's more than just like simple like TV and go to theatre now, because that's the traditional how it happened. But there's
Mm.
so many more opportunities to see things. So like now, I love breaking down, new technologies, and yeah, like almost the engineering brain's like, yeah, now we've got some other things to like, have a look at and try and dissect and integrate and create more potentials.
See, now this is interesting because having been in the creative industry for a really long time, and then in the entrepreneurial kind of space as well, and tech and everything, I've noticed there's been this real push. Well, it might be changing recently, but there's always been a push to really niche down. You know what I mean? And really focus on being an expert in something. Do you find in the dancing, the choreographing type of space that there is still this push against portfolio careers, with lots of different things? Do you find that, or is that not necessarily a problem?
I I do think, well, I think it's been a problem in my career that I've been so versatile. I do feel like I've lost a lot of projects where people have just, because my reel is so diverse, because I wanted to
Mm,
put everything on my reel but because it's not focused on a certain thing, people don't feel like I'm specialized, or I don't think I'm capable of executing, because they're like, oh, they're prejudges. Like, oh, well, he does a bit of everything, so he can't be just good at one thing. So, and it has frustrated me, but I've got over that, because I know that I can work in all sorts of spaces, and it gives
mm,
me a yeah, like wide opportunities to work in different spaces and different people, and that feeds my brain and challenges me, rather than sticking to one thing and doing this over and over again. 'Cause, because once you've done one music video, it can be many music videos, and then
mm,
you're just churning them out like it's like bread and butter, but you're not really like progressing or creating anything new, unless obviously there's a bit more money in it. My budgets are huge, but once you like, I was a train of thought, like once I've done at least one of each one thing, that's good for me, unless it's like creatively challenging or creatively amazing, then go for it again, and then build it into your portfolio, so everything that you're doing is something a little bit more different, rather than it just being the same thing over and over again. So I think like that was part of my thinking too, that I wanted creative challenges. I wanted to push myself, rather than churning myself in the same industry. Then it becomes like a chore, and then it
mm.
becomes boring, and and then you
Yeah.
might not be so invested into it.
Yes, that's something I think every single person who watches this who's got ADHD is going to go, yeah, yep, 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 yep. That's exactly it. So I'd love to know. I've got another question about the choreography side of things. Because you've done so many things, musicals and live shows and immersive exhibits, is there something you haven't yet done? Like, is there a new frontier that you're excited about, or do you have a particular favorite genre that you like to work in?
I think the possibilities now of like yeah, as I say, like
Mm,
showing, or the audience being able to consume art shows in different ways is exciting. So like as you say, like we talk about like I mean, even the word immersion is such a broad thing. There's so many
mm,
types of immersion. Immersion includes escape rooms, like VR, mixed reality, like yeah. Even like immersive theater, where like you got live action, and then you've got you're taken to a room and you have a personal experience. So there's so many different ways to define even immersion, that like that there's so much excitement in other ways of delivering like art and performances and dance that that yeah, like it excites me because there's more possibilities for creation, and then also anyone that's creating new technologies, working alongside an artist like me, we can develop something uh, new and amazing and push the boundaries together. Yeah, which I often nowadays it's pretty hard because the technologist comes first sometimes, and then we're just an agent to help them do
Yeah.
something. But whereas it'd be better if we both developed it together. So those are the kind of things that really would love to get involved in more and see where the possibilities are.
That's amazing. So I have one more question about like I'm curious about with those of us in the creative industries, and I'm sure it's the same with people with business entrepreneurs or on the science side of things. There's always groups that we find support in. Are there any particular groups that you like to work with, or that have you found support in, whether it's dance, choreography, or just in general as a creative?
Um, I think I think like finding in general your tribe, I guess in
Mm,
terms of the industry is always the challenge because obviously like starting out it's all like whoa, amazing, wow, whoa, you're so overawed by so many little the things that are out there, and who is who and whatnot. I think finding like-minded people is the yeah is what helps you, because obviously my background is I'm a British born Chinese. I am a
mm,
diaspora in this country, and I've recently found like during COVID, I tried to search out my tribe, let's say my fellow diaspora, because especially in the creative industries where I feel like East Asian representation is still very, very much not no, we're not seen enough. Like, I
mm,
come on a set and most of the time I am the, person, the most diverse person there of anyone. And also like, I am most of the time the only East Asian
mm.
on a set. And then apart from even on camera, like there's still East Asians are still not being seen as much. I know Bridgerton has it's been a big thing like for us because we've got an East Asian family on Bridgerton now, which is massive. Because usually we're always background, or when not even if you see an advert, you see a group of friends, you're still not seeing an East Asian person. You see
Yep.
South Asian
Yep.
and Black now, which is great. But I feel like that diversity still needs to be addressed. But yeah, like there are people out there. There's a lot of talent out there. People just need to find them.
Absolutely. The more representation, the better. I love this. Like, yeah, you're so right about finding the tribe. And I think that's because sometimes with jobs, no matter what our jobs are, we have to bend ourselves into pretzels, as neurodivergent people like to try and mask or suit a certain thing. And so it feels like if we're not at a place in our lives where our job lets us be as free as we want, then you just have to kind of hold it all in until you get to your friends or your tribe and then just like that. Like, so it's lovely to have that connection. So,
Yeah.
but the next thing I wanted to talk about is the purely selfish person asking a purely selfish question, and
Yeah.
that is about RuPaul. So you you moved into judging, and one of the things you judged on was the CBS talent show, The World's Best, alongside RuPaul, Drew Barrymore, and Faith Hill. Now, what's really cool about this is that you mentioned that this is like a worldwide talent show. So obviously the talent is much more varied. There's a lot more things going on. So I'd love to know what that experience was like, and then maybe a little bit about RuPaul. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that show was yeah, it was kind of a whirlwind because I was asked to do it, and it was a new format of a show. It was basically the world's best talents in one show. So imagine like the Got Talent around the world, but they're all from around the world in one show. And then it was hosted by James Corden. There were three American judges: RuPaul, Faith Hill, and Drew Barrymore. And then there were 50 other judges from around the world with different like expertise and specialities, and I was one of those 50, and half the vote would be those three judges would have half, 50% of the vote, and the rest of us would have a vote each. So we could override their opinion if we wanted to. So yeah, it was quite, yeah, really like, because I hadn't been on a show, being a judge, I'm usually behind the camera. So, um, yeah, and then seeing all the other judges, and they were all from like their own country, but they were like either a presenter or a judge on The Voice, or X Factor, or the Got Talent in their own country, and it was like whoa. And then watching them watch an act, and then they had, they're so seasoned that they're like writing notes and taglines. So when the camera came to them and they had a question asked by James, they had a phrase to say already, and it was like, whoa, that was so good. Whereas I was like a rabbit in the headlight going, what do I say? What do I say? But I felt the most best approach for myself, not having been in that environment and in that position, was to really speak from what I saw, honestly, giving them the feedback that I felt in my feeling and what I saw. So yeah, but it was hard to condense it, because, you want to get into details, you can do, but on a show like that, you do want to be concise in terms of feedback. So it's digestible, but also to the point to the audience at home. So, because how TV just is very fast paced, and it's like bam,
Yes.
bam, bam, move on to the next act. So yeah, it was interesting challenge. But yeah, like what I found was very generous, and you know, you know, gave advice, and was yeah, really really good energy, and so really respected, and helped us all really, like, because it made us feel like comfortable being around, and being able to give our opinions and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good. It was really, really exciting. Yeah.
Was there a particular like one that comes to mind? Was there a particular dance group or dancer that just blew you away or showed you something new or anything else that just made you,
Um,
wow, that's so cool?
it was tricky because obviously, like, they invited a lot of dance acts onto the show, but
Mm.
it was all types of talent. So a lot of the times I got asked to do feedback. It wasn't to a dance act. It was to, like, a ventriloquist, or a sword swallower, and so, like, yeah, there was all types of acts there. I mean, there was one memorable act for me. There was a flamenco act from Spain that
Ooh.
was that was all the guys. I think it was five guys, and they were just so powerful, so amazing. And yeah, unfortunately, he didn't come to me to feedback on that one, but yeah, like, that was one that I was like, oh yeah, I really like the presentation of that one. But yeah, yeah, that was, yeah, also the challenge, that I was never, it was only got to feedback on maybe one dance act throughout the whole season. So having to, like, yeah,
Demo.
having to, yeah, show my expertise in things that I'm not an expert in, but also have the honest feedback on the performance and the presentation, and and how talented that was, in my eyes, obviously. Some things I've never seen before were really, like, insanely amazing, because the first time I've seen it. But for me, seeing the dance stuff, it's like, well, some of the stuff I've seen before, so it's obviously I have a a radar and a bar for stuff. So yeah, it was very very interesting process.
I love that. Now I know we're running out of time, so I've got a few more questions, but one that had just popped in my head just on what you've just said is I think one of the things, and this is only from my own experience and the people who I speak with, other people might find this different, but I think neurodivergent people are really good at finding collaborations and new ways of doing things, making different connections and collaborating with people maybe that wouldn't on the obvious side be someone who you'd approach. So I'd love to know, with all of your time, like, choreographing, performing, judging, whatever, did you ever have a time where you just saw someone, worked with someone, you went, I have to work with you again, like, can we do something together?
Yeah, I think, there's one company that I work with a lot, a visual effects company. They're called Buckloop. They're based in Bristol. They're basically, the one of the partners. He's a director, Ben, and he used to be a music video director. So I did music videos with him in the past, and he was really good at, like, visual effects even back then. He was putting stuff into the videos that he was create, offline, and he'd be like, wait, that wasn't even there on set. So then, like, their company moved into visual effects, doing, like, they do screens for, like, Britain's Got Talents, they do, like, screens for tours, and I've been able to collaborate with them a lot on like projection mapping content for screens behind performers, and I've now got them on shows where I've developed stuff with like avatars on screens and or visual effects on screens while performers are on stage, interaction. So like, yeah, it's that's been the most exciting stuff because we can sit down and talk ideas for ages and come up with so many different executions and it's definitely been they as I was talking earlier about, like sometimes you've got the technologists, but we're only just helping them execute their idea rather than it being like
Yeah.
a partnership, like creating something together. So, and that's the first time I was like, oh wow, we're really developing and finding something, together, and yeah, it helps because that's where we both can push the boundaries with our expertise together, rather than you
Mhm.
think this is the technology and you do something in front of it or with alongside, and we'll just say, okay, no, that works or doesn't work. Yeah, it should be a bit of both really, because there's two possibilities that can go everywhere. So there's far more possibilities if you collaborate.
Amazing. I love this. Yes. Right. So my final regular question before we find out where we can find you is if I chucked 20 million quid at you and gave full creative control for something, what would you do? What would this dream project be?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to do a massive touring circus show that involves like obviously amazing circus acrobatic aerial acts, but like it'll be like immersive in a way like where it has stage automation and screen content and then also like I would love it to be able to be consumed in other ways. So whether we're using mixed reality so that people that aren't present in or can't buy a ticket accessibility, that they can watch it in different ways. So that whether it's putting on some glasses and putting it in front of them, however big, small, big, and then be able to walk around performers or under them and be able to see them in different ways. So how that performance can be consumed in other ways so that it's
Mhm.
accessible to everyone. Yeah, so yeah, I know, like that's one of the dreams I have is to create a show that is viewership is multiple and how you can see it.
That's very cool. I love anything circusy. So like, especially with acrobatics, that sounds like so much fun. And send me my tickets. So I'm excited about this.
Sure, sure.
So this has been absolutely amazing. I just would love to know because again, there's so much of a huge body of work you've done. You've accomplished so much. It's been extraordinary. How do people find you?
Yeah, so very simply, my name, Del Mac, you can go to delmac.com, or on my Instagram is Delmac. So those are the two main channels I put my stuff out on. And then, otherwise get in touch. I've got loads of stuff to show, and sometimes it's so hard to like show everything on these platforms because, we always trying to show the best things or curated things. Sometimes getting in touch and no, I might have something in the hard drive or that I can throw into the mix that can help come up with more ideas. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. So, well, I thank you so much for coming on, Del. It's like such a pleasure to chat. And I'm already, if I'm being very honest, I'm already like my brain's going, how can I work with this man? How can I work with this man? So, like it's so exciting to have you on and to see this incredible career that you've built for yourself. It's extraordinary. So, yeah, thanks so much for your time, and can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.